Carson Osbar could be going Cup racing full-time in 2024 Aspire Motorsports. John Nemechek might replace Noah Gragson at Legacy Motor Club. And Shane Van Gisbergen will make his official oval debut next weekend at Indianapolis Raceway Park. What's going on, guys? It's Daniel, and welcome back to your video. We got some Nascar and other motorsports stories discussed here today on the channel. Let's go ahead and just jump straight into those really quickly. We're going to have by starting to talk about Jockey. As it was announced this morning that Jockey has signed a multi-year contract extension as a sponsor with Trackhouse Racing. They will sponsor Ross Chastain and Daniel Suarez for 2024 and 2025. Now, the number of races was not disclosed this morning, but it's really cool to see a Jockey that joined, I believe, last year in 2022. Really cool to see that they are going to continue their sponsorship and funding with Trackhouse. I love the company, love the sponsorship. Cars looked amazing, and glad to see that Jockey will continue sponsoring Trackhouse Racing for the next 2 seasons. And now we're going to head on to the next story of today's episode, as we're going to talk about the Michigan purse money for this weekend. So every time we have a NASCAR Cup Xfinity Series and or Truck Series race, Bob Pockrass puts out the purse money. And according to him, for the Cup race, it's $7,544,696. And for the Xfinity race, it's $1,367,625. That's some pretty good purse money, all things considered. Obviously, there's going to be more cars in the Cup Series field than normal. Usually have 36. You got 37 this weekend with Austin Hill running, I believe. And also for the Xfinity Series race, you got some pretty good purse money for this weekend. Almost $1.4 million, which is some pretty good purse money. So that is the purse money, though, for this weekend. That's some good purse money. And now we're going to jump on to the next story of today's episode, as we're talking about Corey Schlesinger. As it was announced on Wednesday that Corey Schlesinger will give the command for the Cup Series race at Michigan. Corey Schlesinger, from what I understand, is a legendary Detroit linebacker, playing in the NFL for many years. It's really cool to see that he's going to be giving the command. I think he'll give a really good, energetic command. It's really exciting stuff, and very happy to see that Corey Schlesinger is going to be giving the command for the Cup race in Michigan. It's pretty exciting stuff. And now we're going to jump on to the next story of today's episode, as we are talking about Mason Massey. As it was announced on Wednesday that Mason Massey will drive the 44 for Alpha Prime Racing this weekend in Michigan. Mason Massey has competed in a lot of Truck Series races here. He was supposed to run the full season with the Rain Brothers Racing organization in 2023, but sponsorship and funding fell through. And he's also made select NASCAR Xfinity Series starts for teams like SS Greenlight Racing. This, in my opinion, is a pretty solid pickup for Mason Massey. I think Alpha Prime Racing is a little better than SS Greenlight Racing. Despite the team struggling, I think it's a really good opportunity for Mason Massey. Hopefully he can do a really solid and a really awesome and good job. Nonetheless, really looking forward to seeing him drive for Alpha Prime Racing this weekend at Michigan. And now we're going to jump on to the next story of today's episode, as we are talking about Camden Murphy. As it was announced yesterday morning that Camden Murphy will drive a 08 for SS Greenlight Racing next weekend at the Indianapolis Road Course. Camden Murphy, I still believe, is competing in Monster Jam, but he is a former NASCAR driver who raced in NASCAR a couple times in the Truck Series, in the 8 truck for Joe Nemechek's organization for Nemco Motorsports, as I think has made select Xfinity Series starts in the past as well. It is really cool to see that he's back in the Xfinity Series. It's been a long time. I think it's been like 2016 or 2017 since he last raced in the NASCAR Xfinity Series. So really good to see he's getting a shot and opportunity to race in Xfinity. And I'm looking forward to seeing him out on the racetrack next weekend at the Indianapolis Racecourse. And now we're going to jump on to the next story of today's episode, as we're talking about Andre Castro. As it was announced yesterday that Andre Castro once again returned the Xfinity Series, driving the 34 car for Jesse Wuji Motorsports next weekend at the Indianapolis Raceway Course, or Indianapolis Road Course. Andre Castro did make his Xfinity Series debut a couple weeks ago at the Chicago Street Course. He did a very solid and a really good job. Has some great pace and great speed, and was in the top 20 in quite a bit of the race one. I think he finished around 17th or 18th in his debut. Now, Andre Castro, I'm not expecting to go up there and set the world on fire, but with how much talent he has, I do think he has a chance and a possibility to potentially finish maybe top 20. That car's had the capability of finishing top 20. Nonetheless, I think he's a really awesome and a fantastic and a great opportunity for him. Looking forward to seeing him back behind the wheel in the number 34 car for Jesse Wuji Motorsports next weekend at the Indianapolis Road Course. And now we're going to jump on to the next story of today's episode, as we're talking about the Nashville Street Course. As it was officially announced yesterday, as expected, that the Nashville Street Course is going to host the IndyCar season finale, I believe, for the next 3 seasons, starting in 2024. And with the construction of the new Tennessee Titans Stadium that is coming into play, there is going to be a new layout at the racetrack. It actually kind of looks like a little bit like a frying pan or something like that, or maybe like a golf club or basically like a hockey stick. I think it looks actually kind of interesting you're seeing, it kind of looks very similar to how the Chicago Street Course looks a little bit. Obviously, Nashville's been rumored in a lot of stadiums and a lot of series are kind of moving Nashville's basically their season finales for other series because of the fact that Nashville is the fastest growing city in the United States and in America as well. And it's basically the party capital of the United States. So it is really cool to see that Nashville once again is going to be hosting the season finale, even though I will say a lot of people would love to see Laguna Seca continue hosting the season finale. But a lot of the area, basically a lot of people in IndyCar want to kind of party after the season is over. And with it being in Nashville, maybe they'll move the season banquets to the Nashville area. And I think it's really cool that Nashville is going to host season finale for IndyCar. Interesting thing, when it comes to NASCAR schedule, as of right now, Bristol's likely going to be during that weekend as well. So it'll be a Saturday night race, and of course IndyCar will be on the season finale for IndyCar next year, which I think is really exciting and really, really fun. Nonetheless, love the fact that the National Street Course is going to be season finale once again in 2024. It's really exciting stuff, and looking forward to that for sure. I think it's pretty awesome. And now we're going to head on to the next story of today's episode as we're talking about Kyle Busch. Now, Kyle Busch has ran 2 X races so far in 2023, and he's gone on to win both of them. He won last week at Motor Mile, and last night won at Berlin Raceway. Now, Kyle Busch has spoken to the media kind of about this, and I wouldn't be surprised if there has been some talk and conversation about Kyle Busch potentially running the SRX season full-time in 2024. And trust me, if Don Hawk has not talked to Kyle Busch about that, I think he needs to, because Kyle Busch has done an amazing job. He has enjoyed racing in the SRX and has had a lot of fun with it. And I know he's not going to run any more SRX races in 2023, but Kyle Busch has been having also a career resurgence this year in 2023. He's having a career season. All motorsports has been running. I think a lot of that has been helped by the fact he's running a lot more races this year in 2023. Running a lot of dirt late model races, ran a couple of Xfinity races, already won 2 truck races this year, and has also won 3 Cup Series races in 2023 as well. And a lot of people think that Kyle Busch could honestly win the Cup Championship this year in 2023. But going back to the SRX, I would really love to see Kyle Busch run the full SRX season in 2024 if the SRX is around in 2024. So I think it'd be really, really fun. I think it'd be really, really awesome. And maybe, just maybe, we're going to see Kyle Busch get an opportunity and chance to run the full SRX season in 2024. And now we're going to head on to the next story of today's episode as we're talking about Chase Briscoe. As it was announced last night during the SRX broadcast before the main began that Chase Briscoe will race in the SRX race next weekend at Eldora Raceway. Now, we'll get into really one of the big reasons why he's running that race in just a little bit. But Chase Briscoe obviously has a really big connection with Eldora Speedway. He actually won there in the Truck Series race, I believe, either back in 2016 or actually back, I think, in 2017. He won there. And Chase Briscoe, I think, is a really, really solid driver to bring into the series. And he's going to be joining a long list of drivers who is going to be racing in the SRX next week. You've got Ron Capsule making his season debut next week. You've got Austin Dillon making his series debut. And you've also got others like Tony Stewart, who's good at Eldora. Hailie Deegan's going to be in that race, among other drivers like Brad Keselowski, Bobby Labonte, Ryan Newman. A lot of drivers have dirt background and pretty heavy NASCAR field for next weekend. But I think I'm really excited about this. I think Chase Briscoe, with how big of a connection he does have with Eldora Speedway, I do believe that Chase Briscoe has a really good chance and a really strong possibility to win the SRX race at Eldora Speedway. I think he's going to have a really good chance. I think there's a strong possibility he does get his first SRX victory, and I'm excited to see that he'll be running the SRX race at Eldora because I think he's got a really good chance and a good possibility to win the race at Eldora Speedway next weekend. And now we're going to head on to the next story of today's episode as we're talking about Paul Tracy, as it was confirmed from the SRX yesterday that Paul Tracy will not be returning to the SRX for the rest of the 2023 season. Now, Don Hawk did speak to the media. He said that him and Paul Tracy are not on bad terms. But the biggest reason why Paul Tracy is not returning to the SRX is because of how much destruction, how much carnage he has caused in the SRX. Especially last week in Motor Mile when he wrecked a ton of cars and destroyed a lot of race cars and cost his series a lot of money. And Doc Hawkins said last week in the drivers' meeting that he was hoping for less carnage on the racetrack after the first 2 races. Well, Paul Tracy made a little bit of a bonehead and stupid decision. And there were threats from Ken Schrader that he was not going to race in the SRX anymore in 2023 if Paul Tracy had continued racing. And I look at last night's race, SRX race, and I think the SRX absolutely made the right and correct decision to not have Paul Tracy back in the SRX anymore because, look, there was no cars destroyed in the race. You had clean racing out on the racetrack, and overall, really, really fun racing as well, and it was the most enjoyable race. Now, the plan is for them to basically have ringers come in for the rest of the season. They had Johnny Benson last night at Berlin. We already talked about a little bit ago, but Chase Briscoe is going to be running the SRX race out all door. I think overall, if you get kicked out of the Fun Series, you know you've done something wrong. And Dale Jr. had tweeted it out earlier last week saying, if you piss off Ken Trader, you've done something wrong. The big reason why Paul Tracy is no longer in the SRX is because of destruction and also because of the fact that Ken Trader was threatening to quit the SRX. So I think they absolutely made the right and correct decision to not bring him back anymore for the rest of the season. I think it's absolutely a great and correct decision to not bring him in anymore the rest of the year. And again, I think it's more fun when he's not there. I've not been a big fan of Paul Tracy. I don't know why they brought him back this season. I'm glad he's not back anymore, though. Nonetheless, happy to see he will not be in the SRX the rest of the 2023 season. Hopefully, if they bring it back next year, he doesn't get to run again in 2024. So I don't want to see him back in the SRX. And now we're going to hedge on to the next story of today's episode as we are talking about the 2024 NASCAR Hall of Fame. Now, we had the NASCAR Hall of Fame announcement on the people who got in the Hall of Fame for 2024. And unsurprisingly, for the modern day bout, Chad Knaus and Jimmie Johnson are both going to go in together to the NASCAR Hall of Fame. Jimmie Johnson, to me, is arguably the greatest NASCAR driver of all time. 7-time NASCAR Cup Series champion, won 7-time NASCAR Cup Series champion, won 83 Cup Series races, won Daytona 500 twice, won the Southern 500 2 times, won all the major races that you can win. And Jimmie Johnson would not be the driver he is without Chad Knaus. And Chad Knaus would not be the same crew chief without Jimmie Johnson. That combination and paired together worked so well together and gelled together perfectly well, and they both deserve to be in the NASCAR Hall of Fame. For the Pioneer ballot, Donnie Allison has been inducted from that side. Donnie Allison, of course, part of the legendary Alabama gang, won 10 NASCAR Cup Series races, won the Southern 500 and the Cocoa 600 in 1970 as well. And Janet Guthrie also got in on the Landmark Award. So congratulations to all these people on getting into the NASCAR Hall of Fame. But there's been a lot of debate and discussion about this because Jimmie Johnson and Chad Knaus were both not unanimous. Jimmie Johnson got 93% of the vote, and Chad Knaus got 81% of the vote. I believe for Donnie Allison, for the Pioneer ballot, it was 53%, but that is the voting. And I'm going to say this. I think it is a load of crap and a load of BS that Jimmie Johnson was not inducted unanimously, and maybe also Chad Knaus as well. And here is why. No one on that ballot fit the criteria of what Jimmie Johnson and Chad Knaus have done. This is no disrespect to Harry Gant, Ricky Rudd, and Carl Lewis, because I think all three of those drivers should eventually get into the NASCAR Hall of Fame. But none of those drivers have the same accolades and achievements that Jimmie Johnson has. And the fact that Jimmie Johnson was not unanimously voted in is ridiculous. I just want to know, for people that didn't vote Jimmie Johnson unanimously, I just want to know why they didn't vote him in. I want to know their explanation. I really want to see it publicly. I don't know if they should be taken off the appeal, but here's the thing to know. This is not the first time we haven't had a unanimous vote. Dale Sr. was not unanimous from what I understand. Richard Petty was not unanimous, and Jeff Gordon was not unanimous. Jeff Gordon was 96% instead of 93%. So Jeff Gordon got more votes, percentage votes, than Jimmie Johnson. It doesn't make any sense. You only have 3 drivers that were 7-time champions in the series, and Jimmie Johnson was one of those. And the fact that Jimmie Johnson was not unanimously voted, I think is a little bit frustrating and a little bit ridiculous in my honest opinion. He should have been unanimously voted in, and the fact that he was not is outrageous. I know people are saying, it's a pointless debate, but it's not. You don't normally get this kind of vote, and it's just frustrating and stupid. He should have been unanimously voted in. Jeff Gordon should have been unanimously voted in. And Richard Petty and Dale Earnhardt should have absolutely been unanimously voted in. The fact that they weren't is a little bit frustrating, a little bit ridiculous, and I'm not a big fan of that, and they should have been unanimously voted in. I just want to know who the 4 people that didn't vote Jimmie Johnson in. I want to know the explanation for it, and hopefully those ballots are. We've seen a few media members basically published her saying, hey, I didn't cause this issue, but I want to see the 4 people that did not vote Jimmie Johnson in. And I also want to see the 10 or 12 people that didn't vote Chad Knaus in. I want to see the explanation, and I want to see the ballots. And now we're going to hedge on to the next story of today's episode as we're talking about Hailie Deegan. Now, Hailie Deegan was on Rubbings Racing Podcast, a podcast I think Dan Diorio, I can't remember the other guy that runs that podcast, both of them had Hailie Deegan on the podcast. And Dan Diorio had asked the question, when are we going to see Hailie Deegan run some more Xfinity Series races and potentially run full-time in Xfinity in 2024? Well, Hailie Deegan did say that she does and is ready and wants to go Xfinity Series racing in 2024. However, she talks about the funding and sponsorship. She reveals some very interesting information when it comes to funding and sponsorship for the Truck Series. Basically, for the Truck Series, the funding and sponsorship is you need around $2 million to fund the whole entire season. She says for the Xfinity Series, you need around $4 to $5 million to run the full season in the NASCAR Xfinity Series, which is very, very interesting. And again, I don't know if she has the funding or sponsorship. A lot of people think she does. But remember, Ford Performance has sponsored the truck for her trucks for a majority of the year. And that could be Ford Performance willing to do that. Maybe she does have sponsors that do want to sponsor. But a lot of sponsors that want to sponsor are really for a YouTube channel and for her social media game. And she's talked about this in the past. They want to sponsor for a social media game and not for what she's done on the racetrack. Now, a lot of people are going to look at her performance in the Truck Series and say she is not ready to move up to the NASCAR Xfinity Series. I kind of actually disagree with that. Now, look, has she done good in the Truck Series? No, absolutely not. She's only scored 4 or 5 top 10s in her Truck Series career. But one of the reasons why I would like to see her in the NASCAR Xfinity Series and make some more Xfinity Series starts is because in her NASCAR Xfinity Series debut, she actually finished 13th. Now, a lot of people are going to say that she did really good in her Truck Series debut, finishing 17th at Kansas. And a lot of people thought she was going to set the world on fire in trucks, and she hasn't. And she hasn't in the Truck Series. I don't disagree. She has not done good in the Truck Series. But I think Hailie Deegan deserves a chance and an opportunity to at least run maybe part-time in Xfinity next year if she can, or run the full season with a pretty good team. There are some conversation about some Ford teams that do want to go back and maybe run some Xfinity Series in 2024. But I really believe when it comes to Hailie Deegan, I think she deserves a chance to run Xfinity. I look at some drivers who've done better in other series. Look at Harrison Burton, for example. Harrison Burton was not good in the Truck Series. He was in a KBM truck and struggled in 2019. Meanwhile, the first series in the NASCAR Xfinity Series in 2020, and he goes on and wins 4 races. He doesn't make it past the round of 12 because he has a couple bad races at the beginning of the playoffs, but he goes on to win 4 races and 2 of those in the playoffs. I look at Jimmie Johnson. Jimmie Johnson only won 1 NASCAR Xfinity Series race, and it was kind of in a backmarker car. The 92 team actually kind of wasn't backmarker, though, because Talbot the next year went on to win races for that team. But they were a decent team, but they were not a great team overall. But Jimmie Johnson goes to Cup in 2002 and goes on and wins 7 championships and gets in the NASCAR Hall of Fame. To me, I think Hailie Deegan, I think she deserves a chance and an opportunity to run Xfinity. I think she could do better. I saw last time the asked her, she's been slightly improving. More experience she gets, the better I think she's going to be. Again, her performance in the Truck Series has not been great, but I think it'd be really cool to see her have a chance to run Xfinity in 2024. If she struggles in Xfinity in 2024, then maybe she should be out of the sport. But in my opinion, I think she's been in the Truck Series the last couple of years. She showed some slight glints of hope and flashed of brilliance a little bit, but I see a little bit more of her, but maybe, just maybe, she'll do better in Xfinity. I really have been a little surprised that Ford is not giving her some starts in Xfinity. The big question now is where could she go in 2024? That'd be a big question, but she is going to need some sponsorship funding if she is going to move up heading into 2024. It's going to be one thing to watch going forward. We'll see, though, if she does move up in 2024. And now we're going ahead and jump on to the first of 3 major stories in today's episode as we are talking about John Hunter Nemechek. Now, I talked about this on the channel a couple days ago, but it's heavily rumored right now that John Nemechek may be moving up to the Cup Series full-time in 2024. Now, there are 2 potential rides that John Nemechek could end up driving in 2024. The first one is obviously the number 19 car. Now, Mark Truex Jr. has not made an official decision if he's coming back in 2024 or not. Right now, if Mark Truex Jr. is retired, though, at the end of 2023, John Nemechek will be the lead candidate to go to that ride. But there is another option potentially available for John Hunter Nemechek heading into 2024, and that revolves around Legacy Motor Club. Legacy Motor Club is going to be switching to Toyota heading into the 2024 season. We do know that Eric Jones is going to be committed to driving the number 43 car next year in 2024. However, according to that same Athletic article, Jordan Bianchi does report there's been some internal talks and conversations about Noah Gragson not driving the 42 car for Legacy Motor Club in 2024. That's if Mark Truex Jr. does come back in 2024, and John Nemechek could potentially take over that ride in the 2024 season. Now, when it does come to John Hunter Nemechek, I think he's a pretty solid driver overall, and I think he deserves a chance and opportunities to come up the ladder. But let's discuss about Noah Gragson just a little bit. I would be a little disappointed to see Noah Gragson not run next year in the 2024 season with Legacy Motor Club, because here's the thing. he is a rookie, and I understand that he has struggled in the NASCAR Cup Series here with Legacy Motor Club, and they have been off the 42 team and they've never historically been a great team. But here's the thing you need to know about John Hunter Nemechek. John Hunter Nemechek, Noah Gragson. He's a rookie. And I understand that there's a lot of frustration for a rookie. He's not had a good year. He's missed races here due to concussion-like symptoms, among other things. But I do believe that Noah Gragson deserves another chance and opportunity to run in the Cup Series. But I would not be surprised if it's Toyota making a decision. I have a feeling that it's not just Toyota making a decision. I have a feeling, not the Legacy Motor Club making a decision. I do believe that Toyota is probably making a big decision around us because it's no secret that I don't think Noah Gragson and Ty Gibbs get along. And I think Ty Gibbs kind of scowled about it a little bit. And remember, they both have a little bit of history. I mean, Noah Gragson called Ty Gibbs a douchebag last year after what happened at Martinsville. He was not very happy with him about that. But overall, my honest opinion, I would love to see Noah Gragson continue running in the Cup Series in the 2024 season with Legacy. But if not, where could Noah Gragson go in 2024? There are a couple possibilities next year. You do have the 31 for College Racing Cup that could be available, but a lot of people are linking Austin Hill to potentially drive that 31 car in 2024. But Austin Hill does have a couple offers to maybe run with some other teams in Xfinity next, or maybe Junior Motorsports. But Noah Gragson could go to 31 next year. You do also have him, could have an opportunity to go back to Xfinity and maybe drive for Junior Motorsports in the number 9 car. There is some talk and conversation that Brandon Jones might be headed back to Joe Gibbs Racing Xfinity in 2024. And obviously there's some talk about some other rides that are being available at Junior Motorsports because there's a lot of talk about that team potentially cleaning house in 2024. But I don't know if Noah Gragson does want to go back and run in the NASCAR Xfinity Series next year. I think he would love to stay in the Cup Series in 2024. And I think it would be overall a bad move to completely get rid of Noah Gragson based off of this season. Again, I understand that Noah Gragson has had a terrible year in 2023. But Erik Jones has not set the world on fire in 2023 either. Last year in 2022, he won a race and would have been 15th in points and almost would have made the playoffs. This year, Erik Jones like 26 or 27 points and had maybe 4 or 5 top 10s altogether this year. Now, Erik Jones has improved this year compared to Noah Gragson, but it's not been a good year for Erik Jones and it's not been very, very good. So in my opinion, I don't want to see Noah Gragson out of Legacy Motor Club at the end of this year. I understand if they have to do it. Again, if we see Mark Truex Jr. retire, John Hunter goes to 19 and Noah stays in the 42 car. But if Mark Truex Jr. does come back next year, I think there's a good chance Noah Gragson's out and John Hunter takes the 42 car, which would be interesting because we would see 2 Nemecheks run the 42 car because Joe Nemechek ran the 42 car back in the day. It's interesting conversation and talk, though, but it sounds like there's a chance that Noah Gragson may be out of Legacy Motor Club at the end of this year for John Hunter Nemechek. And now we're going to jump on to the next story of today's episode as we're talking about Corey LaJoie. Now, I kind of talked about this on the channel on Wednesday evening, but it was officially announced and confirmed by Corey LaJoie himself on his podcast that he has signed a multi-year contract extension with Spire Motorsports. Corey LaJoie has driven for Spire Motorsports since the 2021 season, and every year Corey LaJoie has gradually improved. And this year in 2023, Corey LaJoie has at times been pretty consistent. Has had a couple top 10s this year, and has also had points this year, been a contender for the playoffs. About 5 or 6 races ago, Corey LaJoie was actually in the race to make the playoffs. Now, granted, he's kind of fallen off just a little bit over the last few weeks, and the last couple weeks have not been really, really good for him out on the racetrack. But Corey LaJoie has done a really good job with Spire Motorsports, and that 17 has continued to improve. Now, from what I understand, Corey LaJoie did have a couple really good offers and a couple potential possibilities to drive for a better team in 2024, among those being Trackhouse Racing. However, because of the familiarity of driving for Spire Motorsports for the last couple years, I think that's a huge and a major reason why you're going to continue seeing Corey LaJoie continue to drive for that 7-car long term. In addition to that, another big reason why I think is there's a lot of big things going on with Spire Motorsports, and that team has some big stuff cooking up currently behind the scenes. There are some talk and conversations right now that Andretti Autosport could be coming in and working with that team in the not so distant future. And a lot of people link to that Gamebridge partnership. Remember, Gamebridge basically signed a multi-year deal with Spire Motorsports, and Dan Townes is a co-owner of Andretti Autosport, and he is the owner of Gamebridge in the Group 1001 group. Also, Marco Andretti did make his NASCAR Truck Series debut with Spire Motorsports as well. So if the money they're getting from Gainbridge as well, they're going to be able to use that money and that funding as well to be able to fund and potentially bring a lot of better people into the organization, which is going to help the team overall out in the long term. But this team is continuing to build up. Obviously, the 77 coach we'll talk about here in just a little bit does have a driver that could be in there next year. But you look at what's going on right now with Spire Motorsports. They're in a better position currently at the moment. The team is getting better. The team is getting faster, and LaJoie has been doing very solid this year. They're more up front because remember, a few years ago, this team was really a joke, even back in 2021. But a team that has continued to improve. The National Guard has really played basically even out the field a lot, and we've seen a lot more teams, especially smaller teams, be a lot more competitive. You also get Ricker Racing as well. That's another team that has really shown some really huge signs of improvement and has continued to improve out on the racetrack. But for next year in 2024, my expectations are for LaJoie is I think he will be a pretty solid driver next year. I think he will contend for a top 20 in points. I think the team's going to get better. I think they're going to get faster. They're going to get stronger, and they're going to be able to hire a lot better people on that team in 2024, including potentially better drivers in the organization. So nonetheless, really glad to see LaJoie is going to be there for the next 2 years. I expect LaJoie to be contending for top 20 points in the 2024 season. This is a great opportunity for Corey, and looking forward to see that he will continue drive for Spire Motorsports for 2024 and beyond as well. While the details were not officially disclosed, it's at least for the next 2 or 3 years, and I expect it probably going to be longer because LaJoie is probably going to retire with Spire Motorsports. And maybe, just maybe, in a long-term future, we see Spire Motorsports become a championship contending organization. And now we're going to go ahead and jump on to the first of 2 major stories in today's episode as we're talking about Carson Osbar. Now, I kind of talk about and skim through this on the channel in Wednesday's video. But there's a lot of conversation about Carson Osbar's future in NASCAR. And according to rumblings and reports from Jordan Bianchi's Athletic article, Carson Osbar is being considered for some NASCAR Xfinity Series teams heading into 2024. Among those that have to mention potentially College Racing and potentially Junior Motorsports. There's been some talk that he could end up driving the A car for Junior Motorsports in 2024. However, there is a lot of talk and conversation that Carson Osbar could join the NASCAR Cup Series in 2024. Now, what ride has Carson Osbar been linked to for 2024? A lot of people have linked the number 77 car for Spire Motorsports. Now, we just talked about it a second ago, but we obviously know that LaJoie signed a multi-year contract extension with Spire Motorsports, and he's committed long-term. But Spire Motorsports is no secret. They have not been satisfied with Ty Dillon's performance out on the racetrack. And something to note about Carson Osbar, he has made his debut with the team in the NASCAR Xfinity Series, has scored a couple top 10s with the number 77 car in the 2023 season. Of course, does have a chance, I believe, to win the Xfinity Series race this weekend at Michigan. Also, Carson Osbar has scored 3 wins in the Truck Series this year, all 3 of his first career Truck Series victories with the number 42 team this year, and is definitely someone who could win the Truck Series championship in 2023. Also, Carson Osbar did make his NASCAR Cup Series debut with Spire Motorsports in the 2023 season, and before he had the brake rotor failures, which kind of could have maybe been his fault, Carson Osbar was running in 16th and had a chance to potentially get a top 15 in his debut, which is extremely impressive for someone who had not really had a lot of next-gen experience. Now, a lot of people are going to say that this would be a really bad move for him because the 77 team has struggled. I think Carson Osbar can get the best out of equipment, and I believe that he would have a really good chance and possibly to contend for maybe some top 20s next year. Granted, I think that car will not do as good as Corey LaJoie's. Corey LaJoie's car is obviously going to be a better car because that is the main focus for the team. But I look at what's been going on with the 77 team. You've got Kevin Boney Manning, who is going to be the crew chief of that car more than likely next year. I would say making crew chief changes. And let's be honest, who's a better driver right now? Carson Osbar or Ty Dillon? To me, I think it is a no-brainer. I think Carson Osbar is overall a much better driver than Ty Dillon, and I think Carson would do much better in the 77 car than Ty Dillon is currently at the moment. Ty Dillon has struggled with Spire Motorsports in 2023. And right now, if I'm not mistaken, has only 2 top 20 finishes, and right now is second to last in points of all the regulars. Noah Gragson is the only one right now behind, and Noah's missed races. And Ty Dillon's behind drivers who basically got penalties and missed races. Chase Elliott, he's behind Eric Jones. He's behind Austin Dillon, who got a penalty. He's behind others like Chase Briscoe, got pretty big penalties this year. He's not done a good job this year, that being Ty Dillon, and I feel like Spire Motorsports has had enough of Ty Dillon struggling. They want to get better as an organization. I think Carson Osbar could really be that driver that comes into play. Now, if Carson Osbar does take over the number 77 car in 2024, what are my expectations for him? Well, I think Carson Osbar does have a chance and possibility to contend for some top 20s and maybe a top 25 or top 30 in points. Because I'm not expecting Carson Osbar to come in here and win races. That 77 car has not been capable of doing that at this particular point, unless you're Justin Haley, who can win a rain delay race like he did in 2019. But I think Carson Osbar will be the best driver who has driven that 77 car, because I think you're going to see Carson Osbar impress in that car. Because again, I think Carson Osbar is an extremely talented driver, and I know that people think he's probably not ready for the Cup Series, and I'm not saying he is ready or not, but again, when you have to have sponsorship money, because I do believe that he does, because the big thing to know, that 77 car we talked about is for LaJoie, but they've got the Gamebridge sponsorship now going into 2024 and for the next few years. So Carson Osbar is not going to have to worry about sponsorship as much. But another thing, though, is remember, Carson Osbar also does have some sponsorship from Beer Security. They've been working with him in the NASCAR Xfinity Series, and his Truck Series starts as well. And I think it would be a really cool opportunity to see Carson Osbar in the Cup Series in 2024. Now, if he doesn't go to 77 car, I do think he has a chance to potentially go to Junior Motorsports and Xfinity. But again, there's a lot of things that could be happening with that Junior Motorsports program heading into the 2024 season. And nonetheless, I think it's going to be very interesting to see what happens in regards to who does end up driving in the Cup Series, wherever, because silly season's getting interesting, but it sounds like there's a really good chance and possibility that we are going to see Carson Osbar in the number 77 car for Spire Motorsports in 2024, and I think he's earned a ride and opportunity to have that ride, but it's going to be very interesting nonetheless to see what happens at Carson Osbar, but it sounds like there's a really good chance and possibility that Carson Osbar will be a NASCAR Cup Series driver in 2024 to full-time basis. He'll be 20 years old to start next year. He doesn't turn 21, I think, until a little bit later in the 2024 season. Nonetheless, so it sounds like there's a really good chance of possibility. He's got the raw talent. He's someone that's done a really good job. He's matured as a race car driver. At least I know his maturity issues have been talked about, but he's been cleaning up on those maturity issues. And it sounds like that could be something he's looking toward. He's working with drivers like Ross Chastain and Dale Jr. as well, who've really helped try to help his racecraft. His racecraft's improved. And I think that Carson Osbar will do a better job next year in 2024 in the NASCAR Cup Series with Spire Motorsports. And now we're going to go ahead and jump on to the final major story of today's episode as we're talking about Shane Van Gisbergen. Now, we have talked a lot about Shane Van Gisbergen on the show. There's a lot of talk and conversations about it potentially running full-time in the NASCAR Cup Series in 2024. And a lot of talks have circulated that he could be driving for Trackhouse Racing full-time in 2024. But a lot of people in the industry do feel like the Shane Van Gisbergen is going to need a lot of oval experience, and he knows that. He says he may make some oval starts. Well, it was announced on Wednesday evening that Shane Van Gisbergen actually is going to do that. He is going to make his oval debut next weekend in the Craftsman Truck Series with Niece Motorsports and the number 41 truck. Now, a lot of people are wondering, why is he driving for Niece Motorsports? Well, it's that Worldwide Express connection. And remember, Worldwide Express is a big partner of Trackhouse Racing. And something interesting to note, Justin Marks tweeted out basically yesterday saying that you need more experience. The more experience he gets, it's time to learn. And Shane Van Gisbergen has said that he wants to learn and race on ovals. Well, this can be the first opportunity Shane Van Gisbergen's race on paved ovals. Now, he has ran dirt races that are ovals, but that's dirt racing. That's much different than pavement racing. A lot of people do expect going into 2024 that if he does run full-time in the Cup Series, which it sounds like a really good possibility, he's going to be driving for Trackhouse full-time. Obviously, they're going to need a charter for him to run the full season in 2024. He's going to have some oval experience. And I do believe that if he does run full-time with Trackhouse, he will probably get that experience with Niece Motorsports. Obviously, we don't know what's going on with Niece Motorsports past 2024. We talk about it, though. It sounds very likely that you're going to see Carson Osbar go full-time Cup racing with Spire Motorsports in the 2024 season. But Shane Van Gisbergen getting oval experience is absolutely huge. And I think a lot of people are going to be watching. Now, something that will have to change is this declaration of points, because right now he does have Cup Series points, and Cup Series drivers are not allowed to run any of the playoff truck race. So before then, they'll have to change his eligibility. Now, what are my expectations for Shane Van Gisbergen in his oval debut? I do think that Shane Van Gisbergen will have a decent run. I'm not expecting him to come in and win the oval race. There's a lot of great competition in the truck race. You got drivers in the playoffs that are going to be contending like Grant Enfinger. Of course, you got Carson Osbar. You got Zane Smith. You'll have Matt Benedetto in there. You have Hailie Deegan racing in the event. You've got a lot of drivers like Ben Rhodes as well who are going to be running in this event, and also Zane Smith as well who will be running this race. So we'll have to be some really good and really strong competitors next week with the team. But I think this is a great opportunity for Shane Van Gisbergen to get some experience. I really hope the announcers, though, next week do know what they're doing. Now, he also, of course, will be running the Cup Series race at Indianapolis Road Course, and I think he's going to have a really good chance to go out there and win. And I think we all know going to next year, if he does go full-time Cup Series racing, we all know that he's going to have a really good chance and a great possibility to win their old road course race, especially street course race, if Chicago does come back, or if they do go to another street course in 2024. I think he'll have a great chance and possibility to win it. But he needs to learn how to race on ovals, and I think he realistically knows that. And that's why he's getting the opportunity to run with Nice Motorsports, and he may see him run some more races this year in 2024. Nonetheless, I think he's got a decent shot. Nice Motorsports has some pretty decent equipment, but you have to remember that a lot of those wins come from Carson Osbar, and we know how good of a driver Carson Osbar is. I think Shane Skido is going to run really, really good. But now we talk about the future of Shane Van Gisbergen. I think at this point, having the Worldwide Express connection, I do think that there's a really good chance and possibly that you're going to see him full-time at Trackhouse Racing heading into the 2024 season. But remember, they're going to need a charter because I don't think the Trackhouse is going to run a third car that is unchartered. I'm thinking about some teams that could open up the rides. A lot of people think we could see Cog sell charter, but I'm imagining that Cog is still going to want to have 2 full-time cars in 2024. One team I've looked at is Ricker Racing. Now, Ricker Racing, we're not sure what's going on with that team past 2023 outside of Justin Haley driving full-time. But in their press release, they have stated they're basically driving our Ford Mustang. That tells me that there may be some chance that Rick Ward does sell their charter. And I'm thinking at this particular moment, at this particular point, that I think they're looking at maybe trying to get that charter from basically Trackhouse, might get that charter from Ricker Racing, or maybe leasing that charter from Ricker Racing. I think if Ricker only had one charter, that team would perform a hell of a lot better out on the racetrack, especially with Justin Haley. And I think Trackhouse Racing would still do really, really good. Now, if Shane does go full-time in the Cup Series, expectations be I think he'd be a realistic playoff contender. I'm not saying he's going to go on and win over races, but it is a pretty decent team overall because Marcus Ambrose and Juan Pablo Montoya, they never were with fantastic, great organizations. The 1 year Juan Montoya had a great car in 2009. He had a chance to win the championship and did almost win race, including the Brickyard 400 in 2009 because he does have a lot of experience at Indianapolis, and he was pretty good at the Brickyard as well throughout his career in NASCAR. But when it does come to Shane Van Gisbergen and the oval experience, I think it'll be really cool to see him out and run some oval races next year and this year, well, especially. And I am excited nonetheless to see that he'll be making his oval debut at IRP. It's really cool to see. It sounds like there's a good chance to be running full-time Cup next year, but it is cool nonetheless to see they'll be running at least at IRP in the Truck Series race. So, that is going to be today's NASCAR news and motorsports news video. I want to thank you guys for watching. Please subscribe to the channel, notifications on so notify when a video does go live on my channel. Follow me on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram, and support me on Patreon as well. Links scheduled over that, and comment your thoughts below on today's video. What are your thoughts about Shane Van Gisbergen making his oval debut, and what team do you think he'll be driving for next year? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. And do you think Carson Osbar is going to be driving the 77 car for Spire Motorsports or not? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Tomorrow on the channel, we're going to have the NASCAR Xfinity Series race review from Michigan Raceway. And on Sunday, pending the weather, there should be the NASCAR Cup Series race review from Michigan. If not, there should be an updated NASCAR driver lineup predictions coming for 2024. Maybe on Sunday, but we'll have to wait and see. Got a lot of content dropping that I think you're going to enjoy, and hope you enjoy what I got coming out on the channel very, very soon. So anyways, like I said, I want to thank you guys for watching today's episode, and I'll see you guys next time for more great, awesome NASCAR content and other motorsports content on the channel like this. Take care, everybody.